Right, hi guys, and welcome back to The Moaning Yorkshireman, the story of my life so far.
So Josh, what's your earliest memory?
So my earliest memory has to be, I was 4 years old, I was in school, reception. So yeah, 4 years old. And it was my friend at the time, Anthony Longley. And you know when you're 4, everything's amazing, isn't it? You look at yourself and you go, God, aren't my hands big? And you're like, everything's fantastic with the world. You're learning all the time. And he was telling me that he went to a bottle bank before he went to school with his dad, and they dropped some bottles off. And we were like, oh God, that's amazing, that's great. And then when it came to answering the register, Miss Story was reading out the registration and came to his name, and he replied with, yes, Mrs. Bottlebank. I remember absolutely belly laughing. It was the first time I'd ever laughed properly in my life. I never knew what a belly laugh were until then. And I got a book off the bookshelf at the side of it, and I had to bury my head in a book to stop myself from laughing while Miss Story shouted at him. It was great. It was really funny. So that is my earliest memory, and that also brings us on to the first subject, which of course is school. So I started back in school in 1998, 4 years old, nursery year previous, can't remember anything of that. And school for me, challenging would be the word to sum my school life up. The first couple of years, like I said, I can't really remember too much, but it started to get rough in sort of like year 3, year 4. I used to be the kind of guy that don't get me wrong, I was never a diamond. I was never a perfect child. But year 3 and 4 was where it started to get tough, because obviously you're making your friendship groups and you're finding, what you like, what you're into and stuff like that, and you're sharing interest with people by that stage when you're like 6, 7 onwards. But unfortunately for us, I was at a Catholic school, and I don't know if it was to do with Catholics or what, but Jesus Christ. But my mum always used to say, well, it were a good school when I was there, and yeah, Mum, that was like 25 years ago, I'm afraid, and a lot's changed since then. Because basically what we used to do were at play times, so dinner times and stuff, we used to be made to play with who we couldn't pick who we wanted to play with. They used to have to choose who we played with. And there was one lad that never had anyone to play with, and the dinner ladies especially always used to be like, well, why don't you play with him? It's like, well, I don't want to play with him because I don't like him that much. And then I used to get done, and I used to get told off. And I used to get sent at the side of the wall for like, oh, turn your head to the wall. I were a bully. I got called a bully and all sorts. It was absolutely horrendous. And it was then when I obviously started to act up and we started to have problems at school then, especially in the primary school. And it used to be basically, I used to be a bit lippy and I used to be a bit mouthy, which I still am. I've not changed to this day. But it used to be where no one had listened to me. Like, I was trying to tell people, no, I'm not getting done because I'm bullying people. I'm getting done because I don't want to play with this particular boy because I don't like him. I've got no interest in what he's got interest in. I want to run around pretending I'm a police car or whatever, and he wants to play Harry Potter. I'm not into it, So that was always difficult, but obviously I was only young at the time, so I never used to address myself in the correct way, and I used to end up falling out with people. And that's what obviously got me into trouble quite a lot. In the end, I moved schools in year 5 it was. It just got too much. It got to the point where I was just targeted. I never used to go out and play that much because I was always in like detention or whatever they used to call it. And it was just a bit of a mess. And then I went to the next school, which was in Mexborough, so I moved schools. And I was there, and for starters, it was all right. But again, and I'm not saying I'm a perfect child, and Jesus Christ, I did some stupid stuff when I was a kid. But at that school, again, the problem there was a dinner lady that was also a mother of one of the kids in my year. So obviously, that kid could do no wrong, and obviously whatever the mother said was right. It was gospel, because you believe adults over kids, don't you? And I remember the one particular incident was the first time I ever got into trouble at the new school, which was I basically went. It was the end of the day. It was the end of the day, and we used to have a coat hook and a rack where we put his coats and obviously his bags and stuff. And my coat had fallen on the floor. And shit happens. I weren't asked about it. I went there and I went to go get it. But then this girl that happened to be the daughter's mother of the dinner lady, she was stood on my coat, accidentally or on purpose, whatever. I'm not really interested. And I said, "Oh, would you mind just getting off my coat, please? It's fallen on the floor." And then she proceeded to stamp on it more and scrape it into the ground, which at that point I got fucked off and I shoved her out of the way. And then she started with waterworks, didn't she? And that was the first time I got done at that school then, because obviously, oh God, it's I don't want to say the name. So obviously then she started crying. She went to the teacher and then they went, "Oh, well, Josh, you just pushed her out of the way for no reason." I was like, "No, she was standing on my coat, but guess what? No one saw it, did they?" So I got done. And that really just sums up my life altogether, which was basically stuff that I didn't really do that I've ended up doing, and it annoyed me. Absolutely annoyed me. So primary school was frustrating, and like I say, I moved schools and it didn't really alter the issue. And I think the reason why it didn't alter the issue was because I was a bit loud and I wasn't a great kid. And I think the trouble is my face just didn't fit in a lot of situations that it happened. So that was primary school, summed up really. There's not really too many specific incidents I can remember of it, but I know it was an absolute shit fest, to be honest. For the most part anyway, but we got there in the end, and then I moved on to secondary school, which was of course a completely different kettle of fish. So then of course we moved on to secondary school, started in 2005. First day was always great. I always remember we used to obviously do like an induction, used to do like a warming day, a couple of weeks prior to you actually starting secondary school, and we wanted to move groups. I was in Gwyn, was the group that we were in. There were only 27 of us. We were the smallest group, but I wanted to move groups because obviously I was at the first primary school, and there was a lot of kids from that school were going into my form, and let's just say, I know I was a problem child, but they were a problem child as well, and they were bad news. They were never really gonna, I don't want to say low lives, but I know what happened to them, and I agree with that. But but yeah, so we said straight away when we went in, we said, look, we want to move groups. So they said, okay, no problem. Well, you've got to go with Gwyn anyway, so you learn everyone that's there and you get to know them before you start your first day. So I did anyway, because they didn't know what group to move me in, because everyone else had like 31 people in, which is nearly maximum capacity. And I got in, and I started talking to this lad that also happened to be called Josh, and you just hit it off straight away. And we were talking, and we found out we liked stuff, and we were talking about PlayStation and Xbox, like most kids do at that time. And we ended up really hitting it off, and I came out, and the first thing I said to my mum and dad was, I want to stay in Gwyn now. I want to stay in this group. So we did, and it weren't any issues. So we stayed in the group. It wasn't any issue. And obviously then the first day came, and yeah, it was an all right day. We just got as register and stuff, found out who his teacher was and things like that. And that was it really. We just sort of moseyed on. I didn't really get into trouble in year 7 that much. I think I got a few detentions. The only incident I remember was there were these two lads in PE that for some reason decided to have a go. Obviously then the different forms mix. You know how secondary school works. And they were in different forms, different groups, but obviously you mix for PE. And they just kept like having a dig at me because I was shit at running. I'm still shit at running now. I'm never going to be good at running. And we did cross country, and I was dog shit, and I finished last. So anyway, they were picking on me for that a bit, and I thought, oh fuck it, no. It was a bit like being in a prison. You thought, no, it's early days. I'm not having this. I'm getting on with it, sort of thing. So he started having a go. These two lads, one of them more predominantly than the other. So I grabbed him by the neck and put him up against coat rack. And obviously then his other mate decided to jump in, and he just beat the shit out of me, basically. He won. And so from that moment then, obviously I got into trouble for that. And it was all that, oh, we're not angry with you, we're just disappointed, you've had such a good start. And I'm there at 11 years going, I know, I fucked up, I know, I'm sorry. But yeah, apart from that, year 7 was all right. It was year 8 that started getting difficult then. And year 8 was, unfortunately, we had art, and I was never good at art, but the teacher really didn't like me. Really had a natural hatred for me, despised me, and I don't know why. It was just a case of, again, my face didn't fit. So art lesson used to come, and it used to be on Wednesdays and Fridays, and guaranteed during those lessons I was getting thrown out for something I'd not done, something that was so trivial, but yet it was turned into a major incident. And we used to have a policy, right, which was you used to get a verbal warning, then you used to get your name on the board, then you used to get a final warning, which was a note in your diary, and then the fourth one was you went to isolation. Now, for me, for some reason, this particular teacher decided that would not apply to me, and anything I did wrong, it was straight for isolation or a straight detention or something like that. So obviously then I used to question it, because I was a child that didn't sit down and take things very well. I don't like having hierarchy that disobey what they should be doing as well, if that makes sense. So I used to go, well, miss, you've not given me a verbal warning yet, but yet you're sending me to isolation. How does that work? How does that work? It doesn't work, does it? And obviously then that used to cause more ructions, because she used to answer back. She used to then start throwing a wobbly at me, and then I used to get chucked out anyway. So that was that really, and that really summed up my next 2.5 years of school life pretty much, because I ended up with the same teacher, and it was an absolute nightmare. But it used to always be, I've not done anything wrong, or I'd done something so minor it didn't matter, but it used to be blown up into a massive incident. And it all came to a head when I allegedly called her a bitch. She turned round to me, I literally walked into the classroom, and on registration, when I answered my name and I said, "Here, miss," she said, "Did you just call me a bitch?" And I was like, no, I didn't. And then that's when it all unfolded then, to the point where I just flipped my lid, because I was fucking fed up of it. I was sick of it. Sick to the back teeth of absolutely getting shit. And it was the point then where it started affecting other lessons, because the incidents that I was doing was so severe, it meant I couldn't go to geography on a Friday, and I couldn't go to science on a Wednesday, because those were the lessons that followed. So I was losing out on like learning in other lessons, and I was just getting a book chucked at me. Oh, there's your science book, do that while I'm in isolation. And I thought, no, I'm not having it. I'm not having it anymore. I'm sick to the fucking back teeth of this. And I just said to her, I said, "Miss, I didn't call you a bitch. I didn't say anything to you. I didn't utter a word. I just answered the register." And then obviously then the isolation comes. They don't believe a word I've just said. So I used to kick off. I used to kick off like fuck. And I used to be shouting and screaming down the hallways and down the classrooms and stuff, because it was once again something I'd not done that I were getting done for. And I think in the end, I ended up getting excluded from school, from that secondary school, about 6 or 7 times. And I would say that at least 5 of those were unjustified. I think one was for fighting, which is fair enough. But then the other ones were all predominantly revolved around art lessons. And the thing that really used to annoy me was that it used to get to the stage where it used to be sort of the last lesson on a Friday. So they used to finish at 2:30 on the Friday, and then at 3:30 used to be end of school. So I used to miss the last hour of geography. But then I used to walk home on a Friday, and by the time I got home, it used to take me 20 minutes to walk home. By the time I got home, there was already an answer machine message from the school telling me I'd been excluded for 3 days for calling a teacher a bitch. There was no way in that moment in time that anyone had got enough evidence together of what my side of the story was, what her side of the story was. They just went, "Oh, he's called her a bitch, let's exclude her." And it used to be for 2 or 3 days at a time, and that's how it used to work. But the most predominant incident that happened during secondary school, which was a big issue, and it did blow up to massive proportions, was the time I allegedly took a girl's £2 out of her purse. That was in PSHCE, so you know, all this learning and stuff. And she was there. I was sat at the side of her, a seating plan, and she was sat at the side of me, and she just put her hand up Clear as day like that. I was like, oh, what the fuck she want? And she just went, Miss, he's just took me £2 out of my purse. And I was like, the fuck is going on here? What is going on? And the frustration inside me, and it still boils me piss to this day. But it was like the kids knew. The kids knew I reacted and created a scene and caused a paddy. And I used to kick off, and I think that's what kids realised, and they obviously then wanted some kind of reaction out of it, which is what they got. But I played it differently this time, and that's when it caused more problems. So I ended up then, obviously, straight away, we're calling for isolation, you're a thief kind of thing. And I thought, I fucking can't be dealing with this. So anyway, it was the deputy head teacher that came this particular time to take me to isolation. And she came in and she went, well, Joshua Stocks, I should have known it was you. Well, for starters, no one calls me Joshua except me nan. So that pissed me off. And secondly, she didn't know what had happened. She just knew that on call had been called for. And then she finds out the incident, then takes me to isolation. So she didn't know what happened. And I just said to her, rather than creating a paddock, I just sat there, calm as anything. And I just said, before you start that, miss, with the wells, I'll tell you the facts. This girl at the side of me has accused me of taking a £2 coin, which I didn't take. No one around me has seen it, but yet for some reason her friends that are 5 rows in front have managed to see this happen. They don't like me very much, and I just find it a bit coincidental. So I said, before you start with your wells and coming in with your assumptions, I assume you find out what's what, and, actually judge us on a fair basis like you're supposed to. And honest to God, you should have seen her face. It got so red. Because I refused her to disrespect me in front of everyone, and instead, in theory, I disrespected her in the sense of I put her right. She blew her lid and she was shouting in my face, and her face was bright red. And she was, Joshua Stocks, you'll never be in this school again if I have anything to do about it. You're an absolute waste of space and you're a piece of shit and you don't deserve to be here. Was pretty much her exact words. So at that point then I went to isolation, and I'm going to say this teacher's name because I never had an issue with him, but it was Mr. Dodsworth, and he was the most politest, honest to God, it was one of the loveliest teachers that's ever been at that school. And I felt really sorry because I gave him a lot of shit that day because I'd just been chucked into isolation and he's just there trying to follow his job, which is write down on this piece of paper why you're in isolation. I was like, I can't answer that. I'm allegedly accused of taking £2 from someone, which I didn't take. And I was so eaten up at the fact that I'm having to write down my frustrations on a fucking bit of paper that I'd not done anything wrong. I was hearing I'd not done anything wrong. So in the end, I said to him, look, sir, I've not got the £2 on me and I can prove it if you like. He's like, well, no, you don't need to. It's not an issue. I was like, no, I need to prove it. So I emptied my bag out in front of him. I emptied all my pockets out in front of him. Then I started stripping off. I thought, fuck it, I'm not having it. So I took my jacket off and my blazer and I took my tie off and started taking my shirt off, at which point then he did stop me. But I thought, no, I'm making a point of this. I have not taken that £2 coin. So in the end, I think I ended up getting an after-school detention for it, which I didn't do. I thought, fuck you, I'm not doing it until I actually know what's happened. Until they know that they were wrong. I'm not doing it. So I didn't do it. And then that caused some problems, and then it meant I had to do an all day in isolation or whatever, and I had to do all this shit for stuff I'd not done. This was regardless of the fact I'd not done it. And in the end, it turned out I'd not done it. I'd not taken £2. She'd misplaced it. I don't know how you can misplace it from me actually going into a person taking it, allegedly, but yeah, she misplaced it. So that was that, really. And the amount of times that my parents had to fight my corner in that school was unbelievable. There must have been in, I'd say, at least 3 or 4 times a year, especially during year 8 and year 9. Sorry, I had a bell show. So yeah, especially during year 8 and year 9, my parents had to come in and they had to fight my corner and they had to fight my case. And I got put on report, and it was just horrendous. And it was very much if your face fits at that school. And that is genuinely, it was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous because I wasn't a bad kid. And my parents realised that when I weren't acting up at home. I was rarely in trouble at home. I rarely did anything wrong. I weren't a perfect kid, like I keep saying. But then they were like, why is this causing so much problem? at school? What is the issue at school? There's clearly something happening out there, you know. And it turned out it was because my face didn't fit, and it was all the way through in that school that it happened. You know, like put on report constantly, detentions constantly. We've got an entire catalogue somewhere. Like, we had a folder together that my mum went in, and we printed off all of the detention slips and all like the reports and everything like that. And you could see the pattern, which was art, and it was that was a main issue. Because all the detentions were coming from there, and it was always when I had a supply teacher as well, a certain supply teacher. And overall, it was just one big fuck up. But thankfully, when I did year 10, and you got to pick your options then, which is obviously, you know, stuff you want to study just for the last 2 years. I just picked the lessons of the teachers that I liked. And they were telling me, no, don't do that. Just pick what you actually want to do. I was like, well, no, why would I pick art? Why would I pick art? They wanted me to, as if like they wanted me to pick something that I didn't like a teacher with to cause more problems so they could have their say a bit more. And in the end, they didn't win because I just picked the subjects that I liked. But the famous quote that came from from the school life, especially in year 9 it was, we used to have an head of year, which, again, she didn't like me, she didn't agree with me. She used to do languages, didn't really like her. And it was an incident that, again, I've not done, but she was accusing me of doing it, and I had to spend a full day in isolation. So I just said to her, look, I'm not having this. I'm going to make sure my mum gets involved. I said, I'm going to get my mum, and she's going to come in, and we're going to have a word, because once again, it's another day in isolation. And she stood like this close to my face. She wasn't right in my face, but she was close enough to be invading my personal space. And she went, well, your mother doesn't run this school. And I just turned around and I said to her, well, yeah, but she'd do a better job than you if she did. And her face went bright red. But what could she do? What could she do? She just tried to be disrespectful and just tried to piss me off. But in the end, the 2 years afterwards, year 10 and 11, went pretty much without a hitch. I ended up with all the teachers that I liked, got on really well. And come results day, the deputy head that was such a bitch and a dick to me for the entirety of my school life there, she was the one that was putting me on report. She was the first one to suggest that I got excluded and got the worst possible punishment for the incident that I'd done. She was there on my results day, and the only lesson that I ever struggled with was maths properly. And I was struggling to get a C. I can't do maths. I still can't do it to this day. And it was results day, and Mr. Donkin, which was my maths teacher, he gave me the results sheet. And he shook my hand afterwards. I thought, oh, does that mean I've got a C? I don't really know. Or does that just mean I've done well in everything? And my mum was there, and I opened it up, and I fucked everything else off. I didn't really give a shit about everything else. I just got a C in maths, and that was such a massive thing. And my mum just started crying, and oh, it was great. And I gave her an hug, and it was fantastic. And the deputy head came over, and honest to God, she had such a fake fucking smile. It was unreal. She went, oh, Joshua Stocks, we're so pleased of you. You've done really well. Oh, God, we're so proud of you. Like, fuck off, love. Fuck off. I know I've done well. I just went, yeah, I know I've done well. That's what happens when I have teachers that I like, and, you know, I actually get time to spend in class. And, yeah, in the end, I ended up with an A and a B in leisure and tourism. I was only 4 marks off a double A, but I didn't fuck off remarking it. I was happy with that. 6 C's, and then I got a D in English language. No, it wasn't English language. English lit. Yeah, so I ended up getting a D in English lit, but fuck me, I hated English lit. Who gives a shit about Macbeth and poems this day and age? Do you know what I mean? You had to compare poems. Like, why are they talking about the same subjects? Like, I don't fucking know. One's about flowers, one's about waves. I don't give a shit. But yeah, so I got a D in that. I didn't really ask. And then I got an E in IT. But that was because it was a half course. So whatever you got halved. So I think had it been the big course, it'd have worked out like a D or a C or something. I don't know how it worked, but I fucked that one up anyway. But yeah, I ended up with that, and that of course then was like, it set me on for life really. And to be honest, to the people that are having trouble at school now, fuck me, do not listen to them about how important school GCSEs are. Providing you get a C in maths, English and maybe science, proving you're somewhat of not a Fruit Loop, but providing you're somewhat of a decent person and that you're bang average, then yeah, just go for it. You'll be fine, because I've not had any job where they've needed to look at me, what I got in maths, English, science. Apart from those, no one gave a shit. I even got a C in RE. Mental. But yeah, it's just really a case of just if your face fits at that school. And the one thing I take away from that school is they always said that their motto was, love one another as I have loved you. And I thought, you know what? Fuck you. You treated me like shit, I'm treating you like shit. And that's how it worked, pretty much. And that was it. So that was part 1 of the story of my life so far. Join me for part 2 next month, which is going to be all about college. See you then.
You always find me here when the world thinks that I've disappeared. You know just where to look. You know just where